Hey everybody, it's Blonde Blitz time. Let's go! Hey everybody, and welcome to the Blonde Blitz. I'm your host, Deb Whitkus. I have got a great show for you guys this evening. The 2025 Scouting Combine has ended, and we're going to talk all about it. I was there. My special guest this week is Shyheim Carter. He's one of the safeties for the Titans. He's here to talk about his Alabama days, his NFL career, and give us some thoughts of his on who he liked at the Combine. As for the rest of the show, Eric Wilson from the Sports Arena, who I spent 3 days with at the Combine, is here to talk about our experience as media in Indy. Brian Scott from the Injured List podcast, who was also at the Combine, interviews football historian Ken Crippen about the history of the NFL Combine. Shay Holland, HGTV designer to the athletes. Everyone loves her. She is here to give us the scoop on where the newly drafted players live. Alex White, sports betting expert, gives us her draft predictions. And finally, Ben Troop, former tight end for the Titans and the Buccaneers, joins us to talk Combine and free agency. It is almost here, folks. We've got a packed show for you tonight. Shall we do it? Let's start out with Eric Wilson from the Sports Arena, who was my partner at crime at this year's Combine. Roll that tape. Three, two, one. Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you?
Deb, what's good? It's been amazing. And let me just say, I'm still reeling from what we saw at the NFL Combine this past weekend.
Yes, we did a Blonde Blitz and Sports Arena collab. We had so much fun. Thank you again. What an amazing experience. And also to go from Super Bowl and then, a week or two later, go to the Combine. It was both experiences were amazing. What was the difference in your mind?
I think the difference is, just the energy really between New Orleans and Indianapolis. Every year, the Super Bowl's in a different location. So it's a different vibe, a different feel. Granted, you may see some of the same people, but the teams, for the most part, have been Kansas City and then whoever they're facing. But there's definitely an energy. When it comes to the Combine in Indianapolis, you are so close to the players, to the coaches, to the GMs. It's like just being in Lucas Oil for the 3 days that we were there, but then walking around Indianapolis and, you're turning your head this way and that way because you might see a Nick Sirianni, you might see a Dan Quinn, you might see, a Jason Garrett or someone of that nature. And it's just surreal because you're in the same restaurants, you're in the same hotel. There's a very, very, I will say like a tangible, real feeling. So I'll say that's probably the one major difference between the two.
Absolutely, and we saw Sean Payton. I saw Sean Payton at the Starbucks. So if everyone doesn't know, in Indianapolis, in the convention center, there's 4 hotels that kind of combine all to one, like into where like they all connect to the convention center. And there's one Starbucks where everybody goes. So it's the best networking you possibly could have during Combine because the who's of football are basically there. So you can, so it's a fun time. What was the atmosphere like at the Combine?
Listen, every year, what I'm very surprised at is every year it's becoming more of a openness, if you will. I remember going back in 2017 and 2018 and, being told specific instructions as far as not to cheer, keeping your voice at a minimum, just appreciating the fact that the NFL Combine is allowing you to be in this building, in this facility, it is. It is an audition for the athletes, for the 300 athletes who do get an opportunity to be there. It's an audition for them. And you and I both know from having been on many auditions, we want to shine our best, and the distractions, we do not want them to happen. But fast forward to this year, there was music playing.
Yeah, there was a lot of
people
music
were
playing.
cheering. It was just one of those where I was like, "Oh, this is going to turn into a party at some point."
Yep.
I mean, you actually, because you had to catch your flight back to LA, there was behind us an athlete on Saturday, Isaac Tesla, I believe was his name.
Yes.
His family, was just cheering at the top of their lungs with everything that he did. So much so that they actually moved from behind where you and I were sitting to another spot to get a closer view. But I was just like, okay, in years past, that whole entire family would have been asked to leave. But it was just such a different vibe that I feel at some point moving forward, it's going to be a party at some point.
Yeah. Well, I felt like it was a party vibe too. We had Colleen Wolfe and Cynthia Freeland out there doing an amazing hosting job. They were up on
Reggie Wayne was out there. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, Reggie Wayne. And also too, I mean, I feel like these guys are coming into the NFL and they have to kind of get used to the fans, you know? I mean, I guess they come from college. Obviously there's, college football is huge and there's fans there too, but NFL is a different level. So it's a different pressure, but I feel like they need, why not start them right away? You know what I mean? So, I mean, yes, it's an audition, but every game is an audition, you know what I mean?
Right.
When they're playing. So let's talk a little bit about what we saw on that field. We arrived day one on Thursday, February 27th. The on-field workouts for that day were the DLs and the LBs. Who did you like?
I mean, listen, the first name that stands out to me is James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Like, Deb, I'm going to tell you this, and you will appreciate this, being that our team is the current Super Bowl world champions for the second time in 7 years. Let me just say this. If Howie Roseman is able to pull off securing James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee to Philadelphia, give that man every single award humanly possible. Because what James Pierce Jr. did at the combine, from his 40 time to the drills, it was just like, okay, that's the guy. I don't know how he did with the interview process or the media portion of it, but I'm gonna tell you what, on the field, James Pierce Jr. was that dude.
And I actually have a video clip that I took of James Pierce Jr. His 40. So let's take a look at it. It's amazing.
Okay.
There it is. There he is.
Yeah.
And I think he got let me look at my notes. It was a 4.47 for a guy who's a DL. That's crazy. Yeah. Well, and good.
The thing about him is not only his size, but also just, you could tell, like, this young man was born and bred for this. A lot of times when athletes from high school to college, they transition from either the offensive side or the defensive side or vice versa. No. James Pierce Jr. is a DL. And anybody who gets him, Lord, please let it be Philadelphia and not Dallas. I'm just saying, we secure that young brother, boy, it's just gonna add to what we already have.
And we did hear that the Eagles are looking at him. We also ran into Brent Selleck, former Super Bowl champion, who we found out is scouting for the Eagles. I was so excited to take a picture with him that I posted on my IG, and we got to kind of talk to the scouts a little bit. They didn't give us any details, of course.
No.
I loved, Eric, that you asked to go sit with them. That was fantastic.
Listen, all they could do is tell me no. I was like, look, y'all got 2 extra seats. Me and Deb can be in there and just truly give you how we feel about people. I was like, look, if we get the opportunity, I'm taking it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they were great. It was great. Brent was like, in the middle of eating, and I'm like, Brent, can I have a picture? And he was super cool. So I love the fact that former Super Bowl champions are now, scouting for the Eagles. I was very excited about that. So let's move on to day 2. Friday was the DBs and the tight ends. Who stood out in your mind?
I mean, tight ends, I'm going to go with Ferguson from Oregon.
Yep.
I'm going to go with Smith from South Carolina. I think Smith is going to be a late day two, early day three kind of guy as far as a tight end. Just his
You mean
versatility on the
Simon,
field.
right? Joshua
Yes,
Simon.
Simon. Sorry,
Yeah.
Simon. Yes, thank you.
So many guys. It's
And
hard to
yeah, but Ferguson definitely was the standout.
Yeah, he got
I feel across the board.
3. A
Yeah.
4.63 in his 40. That's a great time for a tight end.
Yeah. But I mean, let me flip the script here. I know this is the Blonde Blitz, but let me ask you, when you look at the linebackers, who were some of your people?
The line, let me look, because I don't have I just had the DBs here. I really liked Max Hairston from Kentucky. He had a 4.29. I like Nick Manworthy from South Carolina, Jahdae Barron out of Texas, Darian Porter out of Iowa State. Some of the LBs, I had Jahad Campbell. I had a star by him. Shamar James.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think a lot of people picked up on him, but I'm glad that, I mean, of course, Deb, it's you, so no surprise there, but he was a guy that I did have in my list of, I think someone's going to be very, very happy should they draft him. But again, I think he's a guy, I'm saying possibly day 2, but I think more of like a 4th or 5th rounder. I think it really just depends on, we always talk about needs and we talk about what is going to be the most important for these teams. But yeah, Campbell, I'd like to see him wherever he goes. I want to see the impact that he has.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move on. We're just running out a little bit of time. So let's move on to day 3, Saturday. We had the RBs, the QBs, and the wide receivers. Unfortunately, like you said earlier, I did have to fly out on Saturday because I had another gig on Sunday here in LA. But I was impressed by this RB group. I got to interview them. I think they're of the strongest running back groups the Combine has seen. Their average 40 was a 4.38.
Yeah,
within the whole group. I love the fact that the RBs are finally getting recognition. Saquon just got a $41.2 million extension with the Eagles. CMC
highest paid running back. Yeah. And who does he play for? Yes, that'd be us. Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
And a lot of the guys that I talked to when I interviewed them, I asked them, who do you look up to in the NFL? And those were, obviously Saquon and the CMC and Derek. Like, they all mentioned all of their names. So guys, that footage will be on my IG as well. So who were you impressed with? Because
quarterbacks, definitely Dart. I liked him. I also like the kid from Mississippi, Seth Hennigan. With regards to the tight ends, listen, I've been preaching the name Tez Johnson out of Oregon. Even though he's only
I heard it first from you. You were like, you called me before. And you were like, keep your eye on Tez Johnson, and I was like, I will.
Yeah, definitely. I think even though his size, sometimes people are going to see that as a disadvantage. Yeah. I don't. I feel what he does on that field is going to be great. And again, like you said, the whole running back class really, to me, showed up at this year's Combine, where in years past, some people may have just looked at them and not given them the respect they were earned or due. But this year, and I think we have to give credit to Saquon, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, and others, because of what they did this season. I think it elevated the spotlight for the other running backs. Yeah. So I'm very excited to see where these guys go.
Yeah, and I really like, and I'll show everybody here, I have him double starred. Tutton. It's right there. These are our notes, guys, by the way. NFL gives you these, and you just put all the notes. So we have these for each day. So I really liked him out of Virginia Tech. So did everybody. I actually did get a video of his 40 as well. We'll watch it now.
Okay.
And there we go with what you were talking about, the crowd cheering and everything. We saw it right there firsthand. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there, but just in general, Dylan Gabriel, I liked, like you said, Seth Hennigan. I actually saw Dak, was it
Jackson Dart?
Sorry, yeah, Jackson Dart. I liked him in the warm-ups before I left. So I actually had marked him down as well. And I know some people, who else here? I liked Will Howard. I know you didn't, but I liked him in warm-ups. I don't know what he did on the field though.
You know, it's one of those things where and maybe it's just my Big Ten bias coming in because he did go to Ohio State. They just won a championship. So being a Penn State guy, maybe I was like, you know what? I don't care what you do. I'm not paying attention. I will give the young man his credit. He went out there and performed just like all the other quarterbacks. But again, as opposed to the analytics side, the eye test in me was just like, I think the moment might have been a little too much for him, or he was just on a level where he felt he was, which, I mean, listen, most of these quarterbacks do. They feel they're on the same level as a Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, and the hype surrounds them. So it's confidence, borderline arrogance, I guess, in some instances. But I don't know. For me, I was just like watching him throw. Mm-hmm. I will say I was more impressed with Jackson Dart, Seth Hennigan, and a couple of his other quarterbacks. I would put him at least. I would put him at least in the top 5 of quarterbacks who did actually go out there and show up and show out at the combine. I just felt more for Jackson Dart or Seth Hennigan.
Okay. All right. We'll see how those guys go on the draft. And finally, let's wrap it up. Day 4, Sunday. I was not there. You had to leave as well, but I did get a chance to interview a lot of the guys from the O-line. That will be on my socials as well. A lot of those guys named Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson as an inspiration in the NFL. Obviously, some guys that I just researched that are expected to go quickly. Will Campbell from LSU, Armand Mebo from Missouri, Kevin Banks from Texas, and Josh Conley Jr. from Oregon. Any ramblings you've heard?
Not much with regards to the O-line. I did kind of take a look at some of their stats just to kind of see how they stack ranked, but haven't really heard much as far as, like you said, like Will Campbell.
Yeah.
Will he probably be the first offensive lineman to go? I wouldn't doubt it.
Yes.
But it's one of those where, like we said about the running backs, I'm going to say about the offensive line, I think as the years progress, I think we're going to start to give them more love just because of what they do in the trenches. And I really feel like they have a true advocate in Jason Kelce right now, as far as someone who is going to stand up for him.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Eric, thank you so much once again for, the collab during the combine. I enjoyed spending the 3 days with you, and I look forward to draft.
Yeah. Green Bay is going to be something to truly behold. As always, I'm making plans to try and be there, but if I can't, I'm definitely watching. This is going to be probably one of the first years I will say, honestly, I'm watching probably all 3 days because of what we saw, I want to see where these young men fall. But Deb, always a great pleasure to work with you. This is not the last that the Sports Arena and the Blonde Blitz are going to collab on stuff. I look forward to many more. And always, listen, if you need me, as I say, I'm not a hard man to find.
Oh, you're amazing. Thank you, Eric. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Deb.
Yeah, here we go. Wait, take.
He's got Ben Troop at the 15, at the 10, hurdles the man, spins to the 5. Oh my, still on his feet, still pounding to the goal line. He's going to score.
All right, we will see Ben Troop later on in today's show. But right now it's time for my special guest. Please help me welcome Shyheim Carter, safety for the Titans. Shyheim, how are you?
Hey, how you doing? I'm doing well. Woke up this morning. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Absolutely, right?
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
what all we can hope for is to wake up every morning, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I was so excited when I met you at the athlete gifting suite at Super Bowl. We had a great interview there, and then you said you wanted to be on the Bomb Blitz, and I was like, let's come on the Combine Show, please.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to have you here. So I'm going to start out this interview with a question I ask every single person who comes on this show. Why football? Why do you love it?
Man, football. Why football? Football is something that I've been doing for a long time. I've been playing it ever since I was about 4 or 5 years old. And man, my love for the game is it's gotten bigger every year, every single year that I've been playing and understanding the game. So that's why football, man. Football is who I am.
Right, right. And you played college ball at Alabama, right? How
Yep, correct.
how did the experiences there prep you for the NFL?
Being coached by the best, man. Just being coached by
Yeah,
Coach Saban. He
yeah.
prepped you for everything. Actually, playing college ball at Alabama under Saban is 10 times harder than playing in the NFL. I would say it is. It is.
Yeah.
A lot of guys that
He's
went to
tough.
Bama, they would agree with me as well.
Yes.
But playing for Saban, he prepped you. He taught you the ins and outs of how to be a pro, and that's what helped me get to the next level and stay on the next level. So.
Right. What was it like, working with Nick Saban? Like, what did he have you do? Like, why is he such a good coach?
He was always super intentional about the details, paying attention to details, being detail oriented, whether if it was walkthrough or if it was a live practice or even in games. He was just detailed all the way around the board. Um, just knowing how he wants certain things done and getting that accomplished. It makes you feel good. It makes him feel good as a coach, and just keep stacking and building on days.
Yeah, yeah. What's one takeaway from your days at playing at Bama?
One takeaway. I got so many. I can go on and on about
Or
takeaways.
two. We have
Yeah,
time.
but one takeaway is, like I say, man, he taught us how to be a pro
Mhm.
on handling business, whether if that's on the field or off the field. That was probably one of my biggest takeaways from Alabama, just about life. He taught us how to be well-rounded men,
Mhm.
and any and everything that any and everything that we went on to accomplish. Like, you got to give thanks to him, because he was a big part of that. And that for me,
Mhm.
I can speak only for me. He was a huge part in that and my success. So just being, like I say, my biggest takeaway is life lessons from Alabama.
All right. All right. And you went to the 2020 NFL Combine with Alabama. You
Hmm.
were injured though, right? So you didn't
Yeah,
actually participate on the on-field, skill or drills at least.
right.
Tell me what coming, now that you are a pro, what was that experience like?
Man, I always dreamed of going to the combine ever since I was a little kid. To
Yeah.
see me run the 40, to see me do drills, I always dreamed about it. Unfortunately, I was injured, so I wasn't able to compete in the drills. But just being there, man, it was a surreal feeling. Like I say, it was always a dream for me to just go in and go to college and get invited to the combine. And just being there, the energy was through the roof.
Yeah.
I heard you guys speaking earlier. Fans and stuff was in there. Families and stuff was in there. We
Yeah.
didn't have families and fans that
Right.
was in there. It was super quiet. Um, but the energy from the players and some of the strength staff that was there as well. It was just high intensity, high energy, and everything was going well, even though I wasn't able to compete.
Right. Did you do the interviews with the teams
I
or?
did. I did. I did. All interviews went well. That was about the only thing that I could do.
Right.
But like, everything was a great experience. If I would do it all over again.
What was it like being like with the other guys from all the different schools?
Mhm.
Was it like a brotherhood, or were you trying to kind of compete too? Like, what was that
Yeah.
like?
So it's business at the end of the day. So I'm always trying to compete. But I knew some of the guys that was in my draft class. Guys that I didn't know, I got to know them. And man, we just, like you said, it was just a brotherhood, coming out in the same draft class, learning each other, getting familiar with each other, just learning each other, and still staying connected to this day, and just, keeping in touch and things like that. So it was meeting those guys was another great thing that happened at the combine as well.
Amazing. Well, the 2025 combine just passed, obviously. Was there any NFL hopefuls or potentials that kind of stuck out in your mind?
Yeah, you guys said all three of my guys. James Pearson Jr. from Tennessee, Maxwell Harrison from Kentucky, and Nick Emenwari. I think I'm pronouncing his last name correct. From South Carolina. All three of those guys stood out to me. I start with James. James, man, at his size and that fast, it's going to be tough for offensive linemen to block that. It really is. He's a guy, and if he can continue to stay grounded and just keep putting God first and keep going, man, the sky's the limit for that kid. And getting to Max, man, he blazing speed. Went back and watched some of his tape, and he played the ball real well, super quick, super smart, and he's just a great athlete. And going to Nick from South Carolina, being that big at safety, running a 4.38
it was wild.
It's off the charts.
It's
off the charts. Yeah, it's off the charts. He definitely for sure made himself some money for sure. But like I say, man, being at that size and running that fast and also doing other things real well, man, and the sky's the limit for him too. So yeah, those are my top three standouts, and I feel like they're going to do great things in the league.
Any standouts from Alabama or?
What Jihad? He was he was one of my standouts. But one standout that I did really want to see from Alabama was Malachi Moore, but he didn't compete in on-field drills.
Yeah. So we'll see him at Pro Day, obviously.
Yeah.
Were you able to compete or show the drills at Pro Day?
No, I wasn't. So I came out COVID year, and they had canceled Pro Day for me, so I wasn't able to do nothing. I wasn't able to do anything.
Okay. All right. Well, you still made it to the NFL, so
that's it. That was the end goal.
There we go. What characteristics do you like to see in the rookie players?
Somebody that's well-grounded, well respectable, and somebody that's going to come in and work hard and listen and be coachable. For me, when I'm done with ball, I probably will be a coach. So that's what I look out of. That's what I look at all players, just to be coachable, and take things that the coach are coaching you on and applying to you, and just go apply them to the field. That's like one of my biggest things, to see people go out and apply these things that coaches are talking about on tape, put it on tape. So that's like one of my biggest characteristics of it all.
Awesome. Well, and you went undrafted to the New York Jets in 2020. Talk about that moment that you got that phone call from an NFL team.
Yeah, so before going undrafted to the Jets, I'm not going to say a team, but I was getting calls in the second round from teams, from a team, I should say. And then like fourth to the seventh round, it was multiple teams. So I thought I was going to actually get drafted, but I didn't. It was all part of God's plans. I didn't, which is cool. But just getting that call from the Jets and hearing those guys, like, wanting me to come up there and play for a great organization, man. It was a surreal moment. I feel like everything that I had worked for finally paid off. All those long days, long nights, endless hours that I put in finally paid off. Just getting into the NFL, and for me, it was just starting. It was just starting when I got in. So man, I'm blessed and highly favored and thankful for that moment. And it's always much love to the New York Jets.
Right. And tell me about the moment too, that you got the call from the Jets, and you had a little bit of a longer road, to actually make your NFL debut. How did you feel when that happened? And what was that road that you had to take?
My NFL debut was in London. So that right there should tell you everything. It was another surreal moment, probably one of my favorite moments outside of a couple other moments that I've had on the football field. But making my NFL debut in London was, man, I can only thank God for it. Without him, none of this would even be possible for me. Just being able to compete at the highest level. So yeah, man, getting my NFL debut was all glory to God.
Right. And which game was it? And how did that go? How did it go?
It was actually against the Ravens,
Okay.
against Lamar Jackson.
Okay.
Yep. So it was a great game. We ended up losing, but it was a great game. We played them close. I think they beat us maybe by 6 points, maybe. But to say the least, it was a great time, great game, and just had fun out there doing what I do.
Was your family there or friends there or?
Nah, nobody didn't get to come to London. Nobody
No,
didn't get to
no.
come to London. No.
All right. What's the major difference between playing college and then playing NFL? Because I feel like you played with Saban. So like you said, he's even tougher than some of the pros. But what's the difference for these rookies that are coming up?
I just say everything is a little faster.
Okay.
You got guys that are grown men that are pro football players playing rather than just a regular normal college athlete. These guys, these is the guys' livelihoods. This is how guys feed their families. Versus against college, everybody is on a set roster. Everybody's here at least for this year, things like that. In the NFL, everything move a little fast, whether if it's on the field, off the field, wherever. So that was like those two things there. Everything is just fast in the league. So.
Right. Well, and now you've been with the Titans, the Falcons, and the Texans throughout your NFL career. What is your favorite moment on the field thus far?
I would have to say my first pick. I was with Houston Texans, and actually we was playing Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, and caught my first pick, and that was like by far my favorite moment in the NFL, catching my first pick. Still have the ball to this day.
Who was the pick off of?
I think maybe Cooper Rush. I think maybe.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, it was that moment right there for me, man. It was a huge moment, a super huge moment for me. Just being able to get a takeaway and to, just catching an interception in the NFL, man. Like I say, my biggest goal was always to make it to the NFL. And like I say, once I got there, it was just beginning for me. And now I'm 5 years in. So, yeah.
Did you keep the ball?
I did. Still have it to this day. Yep.
Where is it?
It's up at home on my shelf. So in a little ball case.
Do you look at it every day or do you?
I do. I actually do.
Yeah. Does it give you like energy? Does it energize you or?
Yeah, it give me flashbacks to I'll be walking myself through that same play. So it just give me flashbacks, like you say, of that play and just memories of playing ball.
Yeah, it keeps you going. So with the combine being passed, the draft is coming up. A bunch of the young guys are coming up. As an NFL vet, what advice would you give them about making and staying in the league? Because the average player is only in the league, what is it, 3 years? So
I would say first and foremost, man, keep God first with whatever you're doing. Secondly, with staying in the league long term, special teams is definitely gonna you definitely make your mark on special teams, and the more you can do. So the more you do, the more you can do is better off. But making your mark on special teams, whether that's being a returner, whether that's being a gunner or anything, special teams is the way to go, to stick up, to make your mark and to stay around. So yeah, I would, especially if if you're not one of those guys that was drafted super high or anything like that. So special teams and just the more you can do.
All right. More you can do. How about for any of the our audience that's watching, any of the younger kids who have had a dream like you had a dream to be in the NFL? Any advice to those kids?
Yeah, like I say, like I keep saying, just keep God first, and don't never let anyone tell you that you can't do anything. Always believe in yourself. You can do whatever you put your mind to, man. Sky's the limit for you young boys and young girls. So don't never let nobody ever tell you that you can't do anything. I come from a small country town. So if I can do it, you can do it. Anybody can do it. So just keep pushing forward.
What are you doing in your off season?
Right about now, I'm just chilling, having family time, getting back in the mix of things. We're working out and things like that.
Awesome. All right, Shaheem, thank you so much for coming on the Blonde Blitz. I enjoyed the interview. I want to have you back on maybe during the season. Could we do that?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's
make
do
it
it.
happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right. All right, guys. Have you ever wondered how and when the NFL Scouting Combine started? Well, Brian Scott from the Injured List podcast interviewed football historian Ken Crippen all about it. We got a sneak peek. Go ahead.
The doctor is in now.
I'm excited to welcome Mr. Ken Crippen to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Crippen. Ken, thanks for joining us here on the Injured List podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, I've told you, and I remind my fans every year as we get closer to the NFL draft happening in April, the combine is a big to-do these days, but it wasn't always. In fact, I did an episode on the history of the combine and some of its early concepts and what it was really developed for, but I'd rather hear it from a professional historian like yourself rather than coming from my mouth, because I'm sure I probably missed on a few things and maybe didn't get it quite right. So now that we've got you on the stage here, can you take us through the whole history of the combine, how it got started and how it developed into what it is today?
I think before you get into the actual combine itself, you need to get into scouting organizations. In 1963, you had the first scouting organization. It was called LESTO, L-E-S-T-O. And that was when the Lions, the Eagles, and the Steelers grouped together. They officially called it the Lions, Eagles, Steelers Talent Organization. And then when they added the Chicago Bears a year later, it became BLESTO, which is the name that people are familiar with now. And then if you continue in the history of BLESTO, the Vikings were added. It became BLESTO V. And then Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Colts, Miami Dolphins, they were brought in. It was BLESTO VIII. Then they decided just to condense that again. The Eagles and the Lions were no longer there, and they just brought it back down to BLESTO. So that was the first organization that was created. Second one was the Central Eastern Personnel Organization, or CEPO. That was when the Baltimore Colts, they actually left that organization in 1971 to go to BLESTO. But CEPO also had the Browns, Packers, and St. Louis Cardinals. And then they added in the Falcons, the Giants, and Washington. At that point, CEPO ended up changing its name. So it became United Scouting. And then in 1983, they changed their name again to National Football Scouting Incorporated, or NFS, or now it's referred to as the National. But that is essentially the big organization that's going on now. But there is yet another scouting organization out there. This one was also 1964. It was called Troika. So it was essentially the Dallas Cowboys, the Los Angeles Rams at that time, and the San Francisco 49ers. Then the Saints joined it a few years later. I think it was 1967 that they joined. And then the name changed to Quadra. Obviously, you can't call it Troika anymore if you have 4 teams. So they called it Quadra. That team no longer exists. And those 4 teams moved over to the National. So you've got these 3 major scouting organizations that cover the NFL. Each of them are going out trying to get information, and it was all the same information on the same players. And they're all competing with each other to try to get that information. So essentially what ended up happening is that you've got NFS, or the National, you've got BLESTO, and then this Quadra, and they started working together. It was a little while for them to have individual camps. Starting around 1976, they started having some camps. NFS started having their first camp in 1982. That was called the National Invitational Camp. But again, you had issues with all these organizations. They're holding separate camps, getting the same information, and colleges were getting a little upset because now their players are missing classes because they have to go to 3 separate camps to do the exact same thing. So then what they did was they actually held a joint camp. And this was 1985 when this had happened, that all 3 scouting organizations participated in a single camp. And that's where the name Combine comes from, is because it was a combination of the various organizations, and it was called the National Scouting Combine. So that's really the history of how it got to the Combine itself. They started moving around in different cities, but then they settled on Indianapolis. That was in 1987 they started doing that. And the reason why they did that is because the National is located in Indianapolis, and they were the one running the organization. You have to keep in mind, the NFL does not run the Combine. The National runs the Combine.
Yeah! Here we go!
It's time for TSS Fantasy.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Commissioner Cooper from TSS Fantasy. Whether preparing for your drafts, wondering who to add, or who to put in that starting lineup, look no further than us. We bring you expert fantasy analysts, leading medical and legal experts, big-time guests, and fun segments to keep you entertained. Subscribe to us on YouTube with That Sports Podcast Network or anywhere you listen to podcasts. TSS Fantasy, America's fantasy show.
Well, players, you don't have to take a shower to go to work.
There it is.
All right, guys, keeping in theme with the Combine and the NFL hopefuls, Shay Holland, HGTV designer to the athletes, is here to give us the scoop on where newly drafted NFL players live. Plus, mistakes to avoid when you're setting up your first home, athlete or not. Hey, Shay. How are you?
Hello, Deb. How are you?
Good. It's so good to see you.
Well, I know. It's great to see you, too. It's always so much fun. I missed, I think 1 week here with you, and I was lost.
I know. It's like football's over, and then we don't have on Blitz, and I was very excited to do the Combine show. So I'm excited that you're here.
Thank you.
So tell me, we have, obviously, the Combine just passed, like I just said. We're heading into draft. What, these draft hopefuls, they're new to town. Where do they live when they get drafted?
Yeah, people think they're going to live in these big mansions right away and everything, and that's really not the case. I was looking at some statistics, and I was shocked to see that from my research, it appears only 30% actually are going to make a roster from those drafts, the draft of those, about 250 that are drafted. So most of them, their salaries they're decent. They're much more than a lot of us are going to be making, but they're not going to be buying these big mansions. And also, Deb, I heard you mention earlier that most of them only, the average NFL career is only about 3 years, which means they probably don't, especially if they get drafted, let's say by the Rams. You don't want to be buying some multi-gazillion dollar house here in LA and then getting drafted 6 months from now or traded 6 months from now. So a lot of times for this, as soon as they come out of that draft and are on the roster, they're still just going to probably be in apartments, really nice apartments, granted, that has the security and the other luxury amenities that they need. But that's going to be the smartest move for them. I was just reading even Jalen Hurts, and obviously he is like our gazillion dollar man right now.
Yes.
But
now, yes.
After
5 years ago.
Had stayed in his apartment because it made the most sense for him to be in an apartment near the team. And in Jersey, I think that's your neck of the woods too.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, he definitely lives somewhere in South Jersey.
Oh, I lost your audio. I hope you've got me still on. So I will tell you, as far as where they're going to be living, so the players are, like I said, in an apartment, and usually that apartment is going to be somewhere near where the team is training. So if they don't want to be too far away, they want to be within 20 to 30 minutes of wherever that training camp is going to, or their training takes place for that team. And then a lot of times they'll be buying a house once they're ready for that in maybe their hometown or wherever they think they're going to live after retirement, if that's going to be their family home and things like that. So yeah, so it's kind of all over the board, but that's in general kind of what we find.
And the draft happens, it's very fast. They walk on the stage, they celebrate that night. Early the next morning, you're on a flight to the city that drafted you. What are some of the things that these athletes can bring with them to make this first apartment feel like home?
Well, a lot of times not very much, to be honest with you. And it's actually what I also tell my clients: when you're getting that first place, you don't really want to bring a lot of stuff with you. And you got to remember, these are also mostly really young guys, maybe 24, 25 years old. Yeah. 24, 25 is the average age. You have your, Coopers who are 21 when they get drafted. So yeah. And based on what they're making now and coming out of college, just go ahead and start fresh. And what I do tell my clients is, when you get that first place, when you're making that transition, live in it for a while, maybe get a bed and a dining table or something like that, but give it some time to figure out what is your personal style. Don't go and spend a bunch of money on something that somebody else is telling you, because it may not feel very good when you come home at night. It may not feel very restful. I know I made that mistake even myself. I got a bunch of black leather furniture in my first place, and then I wondered why I didn't feel cozy.
I don't even remember what my first place was like, to be honest. I think I had a furnished apartment, my very first apartment in Chicago. Yeah.
And that might be an option, is, for them to get a furnished place. We have companies that specialize particularly, kind of on the higher end, that do all of that, staging companies and things like that. And then you're not weighted down. And it's also more sustainable this way, as if you give yourself that time, rather than buying a bunch of stuff and then you find out 6 months or a year later, either you can't use it because now you've been traded, or it was never you in the first place. So there are some steps that I tell both for clients or that you see for players to help yourself set yourself up for success at home, just like you would on the field.
And what are some of those steps?
Yeah, like I said, not rushing into it would be one of the things. If you can, work with a professional. I just had somebody this morning who thought that she could do, painting her whole house, and it turned, to be honest with you, it was a disaster.
Oh, no. You helped me paint my house, though.
Colors are very tricky. They really are. And so if you're going to do something where you really want to personalize it, work with an expert to avoid some of those mistakes. And then think long-term as well. I really am very big on sustainability. So if you can, try to go with like natural materials and things like that are going to help not just you, but also help the planet. So those are some of the top things in that transition. But the most important thing is just like not getting impatient. I know we move into a place and we want it all set up in one day. And the reality is that's just not the best way to do it. And the best places that feel lived in have evolved over time.
Amazing. All right. Thank you, Shay. Where can our audience find you?
They can find me at Shay Holland Official across socials.
And we'll see you on the draft show, yes?
I am so excited. Don't you feel the excitement around this year? Like, I know you mentioned everybody cheering and everything, but there seems for some reason some additional excitement. So yeah, I can't wait.
I think this was one of the most exciting combines that I've been to or seen in general. The energy was amazing, and everybody was just excited and networking and having a good time. And yeah, I cannot wait for this year's draft.
Yeah, they're like almost superhuman. Even the big guys are so fast. It's just
like the DLs and the DBs were getting insane numbers in the 40. We were just like, is this really happening right now? So yeah, just all around athletes, these guys. All right, Shay, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. All right, guys, now that the combine is over, we're looking forward to the draft. Sports betting expert Alex White is here from Las Vegas to give us some early predictions of where the players might come off of the board. Alex, hello.
Hi, Deb. So much fun listening to your experience in Indianapolis. I'm glad you had a good time.
So much fun. I want to do it again and again and again. Like going from Super Bowl then to Combine, it was just amazing. I haven't slept in weeks, but it's all worth it for football.
Yes, especially when your team wins too. So
that's true. Yeah, I think I'm still a little bit on a high there as well. I love that you're live tonight. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Live from the South Point Sportsbook right behind me. So just love to utilize the studio when I can.
It's amazing. All right, so the combine is over. We're looking forward to draft. Can you give me some early predictions where you think some of these players are going to land?
So it's so tough, and that's one of the most important things to do before making your bets is really to just go over all the mock drafts and make sure you have as much information as you can. And that's where you can have an edge, because really these lines are not as sharp as, typical NFL games, because the bookmakers know as much as everybody else. So really just diving in and doing your research, I think you can find some good value. But the thing with betting the draft too is you can't be afraid to lay some juice. So I really like Tyler Warren being the first tight end to be drafted, right? It's minus 320, which feels a little steep, but I mean, is there another tight end that you think is going ahead of him? And by the time the draft happens, it might be minus 1100 because we see those lines move so dramatically. So it's really tough. I'm still doing all my research.
Right.
I'll definitely be back for your draft show, if not just a video to give my best bet. But
yeah,
it's really interesting. And I will say another tip, Deb, is you kind of want to look for spots where you can bet on a guy to go further than expected, such as an Ashton Genty, maybe. I've seen a lot of mock drafts with him at 6 to the Raiders, and then I've seen him at 18. So if I can find some value there and get a bet down that he is going to go after 10, or, especially with running backs, you just never know. And because you were there, this is a very strong running back class.
It's a very strong running back class. I got to talk with each of them, and as you're talking, I'm literally going through the. As you're saying names, I'm like going through, marking down what I should do. Where do you think Pierce is going to go?
That is a great question. What did you? What do you think? What did you hear?
Well, after he ran the 40, there was rumors that he might go Eagles, which would absolutely be amazing. But Eagles are picking at 32. I personally don't think he's going to drop that low, but I'll take him, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's a lot of good defensive guys out there too. Yeah. So I agree, though. I don't think he is going to drop all the way to 32. But with the Eagles, they could make a call and move up a little bit. And that's what's so interesting, too, because right now we do have Cam Ward as the favorite to go first overall. But I'm not completely convinced that will be to Tennessee. Are you?
I'm not. No, I'm not. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. I think, I mean, I like him, but yeah, I feel like there's so many different people who could go first that I don't want to just put all my eggs in one basket right now. So, what any predictions with the quarterbacks?
Well, okay, so I am curious, and I have to dive into where some more bets, because we don't have as big of a selection here in Vegas, but I know most states do. But I am curious to see what we have for how many quarterbacks will go in the first round, because remember last year we were shocked when there was 6.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, we were completely shocked. Like Bo Nix went in the first, and
Michael Penix Jr. was like the one that bumped everybody back.
And I literally was in a cab coming back from the Chargers, coming from the Chargers draft party to the Rams one, and it was announced in the Uber, and I literally screamed because I was like, "What? No! This can't happen!" But who knew? I mean, who knew he was going to get drafted? Then Kirk Cousins, it was actually the right move because Kirk was not, performing up to par, and Michael Penix stepped in there. So I mean, you just never know with the draft,
Well, what did you hear? Because what I'm reading from the combine is a lot of people talking about Jackson Dart. So, and then even Tyler Shuck's name's been thrown out there because he is older and might be ready to play right away.
Yeah, so I do like Jackson Dart, to be honest, and I said that earlier in the show to Eric. I unfortunately had to leave right before the quarterbacks and the wide receivers started doing their drills, but I did get to see them warming up, and I have some of that video. Jackson was one of the ones that I liked on the field. I also liked Seth Hennigan and Will Howard too, so I see those guys kind of warming up. Eric said that Will Howard really didn't perform as well as people thought he would, but I thought he looked good in warm-ups. But again, Eric was there for the for the actual drills.
I'm wondering if he'll be just like JJ McCarthy, though, because I mean, he's a proven winner and kind of using more of, okay, is he a system quarterback? And I think he proved that. And JJ McCarthy went way earlier than anybody expected to the Vikings. And maybe Will Howard will do the same. I don't know. It is very interesting.
Well, and here's my question to you. Since you brought up the Vikings, I was going to bring this up to Ben, but I'll bring it up to you. Do you think they're going to keep Sam Darnold, or do you think they're going to go with JJ McCarthy?
My gut says I don't think they're going to stick with him. The fact that they didn't use the tag on him, I think they might see what they can get for him, especially after having such a good year. I know a lot of people are putting so much stock into those last 2 games, but still, he had a very good year, and a lot of teams need quarterbacks. So I think they could get a lot for him right now at this moment. I think they will capitalize on that. Now, who's going to be the bridge quarterback? Because is JJ McCarthy going to be ready off of injury? It's not like he had a real year to sit behind him. So a lot of question marks.
A lot of question marks, and free agency is coming up. Do you want to stick on and talk with Ben as well?
Sure.
Okay. All right, guys. Finally, we have Ben Troop, former tight end from the Titans and the Buccaneers. He's here to give us his thoughts on combine and free agency. Ben, come on in. There. Oh, no, Ben. It's Jason. Hi, Commissioner Cooper. How are you?
Sorry, I'm in the back. My bad. And the lighting and all that. But Ben had to go. He had another obligation at 9. He said he apologized.
That's okay.
But we kind of came up late, so my bad.
No, we're a little late. All good.
So please continue, ladies. You're doing a great job.
Oh. I was going to say, so, okay, well, we'll talk about free agency, shall we?
Sure.
I think the biggest news was the wide receiver, from San Francisco, Deebo Samuel, traded to the Commanders. We were at Combine when that was announced. Ian Rappaport got on the big screen and said that, that he was that San Francisco was going to let him go, as well as Brandon Ayuk. And everyone's like, are they crazy? And then I in my personal head, I thought it was going to be Brandon going to the Commanders. And then we all found out that Deebo Samuel was traded to the Commanders. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm really just surprised what San Francisco got for him. I didn't really think it was enough. It was a 4th round, I believe. And of course, they do have to pay some of that salary. But it was a down year for Deebo, so I understand, and maybe the Niners just kind of want to reset. I mean, they dealt with injury after injury, and nothing was going right for them. So I kind of get it in that sense. And I mean, he was asking to be out,
Yeah. And I feel like Brandon Ayuk is as well. Do you think he's going to end up at the Commanders, or where do you think he'll be?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah. And now at this point, without Deebo, is there a chance he just stays?
He could. Yeah, he could. I mean, they could restructure his contract, but we'll see. Some other big news with free agency: Eagles extended Saquon Barkley, making $41.2 million. Zach Braun also $34 million. They released Slay and Bradbury though, so there must have seen a CB that they legged to the Combine, because I don't think they would let them go without seeing that.
Man, that defense looked so good though. That Super Bowl game. So I could see some shifts in there, and they were really young and they didn't need to make some room. So yeah, I think they'll be okay too.
Where do you think Aaron Rodgers is going?
Oh my gosh. Did you see about Max Crosby? So the Raiders just extended or paid Max Crosby, and he made a comment yesterday about he really would like to see Aaron Rodgers with the Raiders. And I did like what he said. He said there's so much criticism on him right now. He might have one of his best years, and we'll see. I don't know. It's interesting. There's still a lot of people saying that they think he took his last snap in the NFL.
Really? I don't think he's done. And it's interesting you said Raiders, because I thought Sam Darnold was going to go to the Raiders. Now I'm debating it. I think I don't know where Sam's going to end up, but I believe the Raiders are going for Zach Wilson, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, nothing can be signed until free agency. It starts March 12th. But that's kind of the ramblings I'm hearing, at least. But I mean, the Raiders would. I don't know if I see Aaron Rodgers with the Raiders, but I mean, yeah, if Max Crosby's there, maybe the Giants too. Like going from the Jets to the Giants. The Giants are dumpster fire. So anything helps, I feel like.
How about Shedeur Sanders? Because to the Raiders, did you hear anything about that this past week? Because I've seen that on a lot of mock drafts, him falling to 6, and that almost makes me think the Raiders would have to make some moves to go up, right? To trade up to get him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could happen for sure. I didn't really hear any. I didn't really hear. Finale.
Maybe Zach Wilson could be his kind of bridge quarterback.
Yeah, that would work.
What about the Seahawks today? Now they release Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf asking for a trade.
They did. Wow. Okay, I need to research more.
Oh my gosh! And the wide receivers, it is insane, the free agency for how many wide receivers, and they're a little bit older. Like we are looking at these guys like, oh yeah, we remember when they were young rookies and we were playing fantasy and we were drafting all these guys, and they are getting older. But it'll be interesting to see where they all go.
Yeah, and Bengals wide receiver Tay Higgins, he was franchise tagged. So was Casey's Chiefs OG Trey Smith. So a lot going on. We'll definitely know more in the coming weeks. But Alex, thank you so much for stopping by, and you'll do the draft show, I guess.
Yes, please. I would love to.
Awesome. All right, guys, don't forget the show is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Go to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code BLONDE, and we'll double your deposit up to $100. Of course, if you like today's show, hit subscribe and follow us on all socials at The Blonde Blitz. See you in April, guys, for the NFL Draft Show, and go Birds!